Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is Figure Drawing Basics, part 91. And this is what we're up to. So I'm just going to continue working from yesterday's lesson. And that is about face expressions and what really is affected when a person is making a face expression. So the first one that I have here that you're seeing right now, that has to do more with like terror, horror, surprise, shock, that sort of thing. And over here you could see how for this expression, the nostrils are raised a little bit, the eyebrows are furrowed, the eyes are widened, and because of where the nostrils are, because of the sort of revolting kind of expression, everything is affected going upwards. So you can see like the eyes and the eyebrows are affected by the furrowing of the nostrils as well. So today I'm going to be doing another example. I spent more time offline. I got carried away. I really like the expression, so I spent more time defining it more. And I could say I've pretty much finished it to my liking. I'm going to start doing another one. And this one's going to be about laughter. I'm going to start by, as usual, creating a quick sketch. Not going into any detail. And just kind of doing general shapes, like big shapes. It's going to be a fisherman, so he's going to wear a fisher's hat. And it's going to be a 3/4 view. So I'm going to draw the line going down the middle. Well, not so much the middle, but 3/4 as well. Line for the eyes. More so, line for the brows and the ear. And right below it, that's just where the eyes are going to be. And notice that all the lines follow the same direction. So I'm going to do another one for the nose here, and it's following the same direction. What I mean is it's not going this way, down in any way, or up even more so. The lines are pretty parallel to each other, from the brows to the eyes, to the nose, and to the mouth as well. All these guidelines are parallel to one another. So that's a really important detail. Just sketching, nothing definitive, not really weighing down on any specific detail. It's really important to get into that habit it took me a while actually to do that when I was younger and I was drawing, and I spent a lot of time on the drawing, so I developed a technique for myself, starting out with a specific part. Let's say I started out with the eye, and then I connected the nose to it, and then according to where the nose ended, I would draw the other eye, and I wouldn't get great results, but eventually, because I kept pushing myself with the same method over and over and over again, and because I kept on pushing myself to see detail more and more, like for example, really measuring the distance between the corner of the eye and the nostril, I would spend a lot of time focusing on those things to make sure that everything is lined up and everything is perfect using that method. But what I ended up finding out is that it's really time consuming in comparison to this approach. This approach is very quick because you're already creating that line there. So I don't have to measure anything out. What I would usually do was I would measure the distance between the nostril and the corner of the eye. I would measure the distance from the ear and the other corner of the eye, that sort of thing. So instead of actually having this line there to just kind of do that for me automatically, I would spend more time doing all those measurements. And it took away time from just focusing more on developing the drawing, really. It became very technical. I did get good results, eventually after doing it over and over and over again. But it was also very limiting because I didn't understand the structure of everything. I didn't really grasp at the time that, these guidelines really do help in terms of making sure things make sense anatomically, proportionally, and I just didn't know how to utilize them. I would see them in books, I would see other people doing them, and I kind of took it as like an academic approach of somebody's technique, like, a style of drawing, really. But after some time, after getting some commissions, and after having to actually challenge myself to even do my own comics, like comics that weren't really for the public eye. It was just kind of me diving into it and trying to see, like, well, if I was to actually do one, what would the process be like? And because of that, I started to see, like, it really is useful in a lot of ways. And one of the biggest ways was making sure that the figure that I was focusing on would fit in the panel. If I was to take that same approach, if I was to start by drawing the eye and then eventually working my way around to getting the figure, it was kind of like a shot in the dark, hoping that, and like crossing my fingers and hoping that eventually, by the time I would get to the foot, let's say, it would actually fit in a frame the way I wanted it to be. And that became really problematic. It became very time consuming. And it started to dawn on me that, like, it really does, it's not a style. It helps to quicken the pace and to establish barriers, I'm gonna say, for like how far you want the figure to go, what angle you want it to be in, and making sure that it's all there prior to going into detail. Now, you guys might have seen videos, I did post examples of Kim Jongji's work at the very first episode, I believe, of was it figure drawing? It might have been figure drawing or drawing comics. One of those. You guys can always actually, to an opportunity to plug this in, you can check out those first episodes that have all these different elements, different examples, by going to the video section in the Twitch channel and filtering based on collection. And what that's going to do is going to pop up a folder for each stream, and you guys can check out all the past streams all the way up to 91 when it comes to figure drawing. Some things are repeating, but every stream, every part, all the way up to 91, I try to present some new elements or talk about something new. I do find it important to reiterate a lot of stuff, because just like when it comes to when you were learning to read, right? It wasn't like you recited the alphabet and you were like, okay, now I know it. I recited it once. I know everything about all the letters and how to pronounce all the different words, and I can read the most complex text. You have to do it over and over and over again. So in a lot of these lessons, I do a little review of the previous day or lessons that I was given out throughout the week. But yeah, I tried to have also something new within that stream, within each stream, something to talk about that's different, to kind of break up that pattern a bit. But yeah, what I was bringing up as an example in one of the first streams, I think it was, pretty sure it was Drawing Comics, of showing Kim Jongji's process. And it was incredible. It's sad to say he passed away just recently. But he actually had that approach, the same approach that I had, but I think it was in full circle. Because if you pay attention to some of his examples, he does use, for instance, boxes to draw a car in, and the box will be in the perspective that he wants the car to be in. And the same thing for people. There were points where he was showing examples and he was using either boxes or just these basic shapes that you're seeing here as a way to establish the figure. But because he practiced so much and because he had such a solid understanding of all those things, of perspective, of anatomy, that eventually it's just second nature. It's the same way as when you're reading. You don't have to recite the alphabet every time, right? And you don't have to enunciate every single letter. You just know the words. You don't even have to spend time to try to understand or figure out or remember the definition of a word. You just say it or write it or read it. So it just eventually becomes that. You come in full circle. You start out by creating all these guidelines, creating all these being more technical, I'm going to say, with your approach towards drawing. But then eventually, because you practice so much, it becomes what happened to Kim Jongji. You're just able to draw it. You don't have to spend as much time. And your mind's eye and your hand are so in sync that you're able to just instantly create proportionate, anatomically correct figures and perspective and anatomy and all that stuff. So it's just a matter of practicing, and it's a matter of getting your eye used to seeing things correctly. So this method really ensures that, and it gets you used to seeing it that way. So for me, I kind of had to unlearn that, or learn a new way of approaching drawings. When I was doing the comics, I would say, okay, well, I need to make sure that this pose is going to be exactly in this spot. It can't be moved over to the left more or the right, because I have to draw other figures. I have to draw other elements in the panels. So because of that, I had to sketch things out first. So the best way to go about it was to use these basic shapes, to use these guidelines in order to achieve that. And then having to work on page after page after page with comics, I just realized, like, hey, that's the fastest way to go about it. And the more I got comfortable drawing the figure that way, the faster I was able to create the panels. I was able to create the poses and spend more time developing the characters and the details than wrestling with them and being like, no, it should be this perspective, etc., etc. So as you guys could see with this drawing, I just gradually build on it. So as you saw, it started out with very simple basic shapes of a circle, and then eventually was able to mold it to be something more And I remember actually I was talking to an art instructor, or I was like sitting in on a class. Don't remember exactly where. Um, but they mentioned the idea of working all over the drawing. It might have been a painting class, actually. It might have been like an oil painting class. But they were saying how you have to kind of like work on everything simultaneously, like not focusing. And what that means is, I mean, of course, you can't just, you don't have like 6 hands and you can't work on the painting or drawing at the same time in all different areas. But what they were trying to say is, don't focus too much on one area. Try to build everything around. Just kind of skip around. And I think that also makes it fun, because sometimes what ends up happening for me, and I'm sure a lot of artists can identify with it as well, is I start to nitpick. I start to really zoom in on something, and I'm like, that angle of like the corner of the eye is a smidge off, and I would sit there and like really try to nail that, and I end up spending so much time on it. It becomes like overworked, and it becomes a bit of a rigid looking drawing or painting or whatever. So to kind of break away from that, not to get into that mode, it's good to work all over. You spend a little bit of time on the eye, you're like, okay, things might start heading in that direction, switch over to the other eye, or go over and work a little bit on the nose. Just have a good time with it. I think that's really important. Start to enjoy the process and create these little patterns for yourself of how you go about creating the drawing. There isn't a specific order. That would be too much of a rigid concept. But the general idea of just working on everything. And similar to the concept that we were discussing earlier this week, or last week rather, shadow, right? If you were to look at this, the question would be, where is the light source coming from? So for this example, since I haven't really developed much and it's kind of hard to guess from it, the light source is from the top down. So a lot of these elements are going to be in light and underneath and aside. So it's going to be like top right, I'm going to say. The left side is going to be in shadow. Certain elements of the left side. Some parts of the right as well. Like, depending on the cheeks, the cheekbone kind of. Because he's smiling and he's pushing all that skin back, it's forming folds underneath the cheekbone. And because it's creating these folds, it's giving the cheekbone more curvature. So as you could see here, this is a clay model that I sculpted. Something that I do recommend you guys venturing into, because it does give you more pliability, I guess. You could, if you make a mistake, you could just like pull it off, put it on, or work on it eventually until you get the proportions that you want. And you kind of wrestle with it. You start to notice certain things like, this cheekbone is higher than this one, So through this process of trying to make things look right, no wonder it's sticky. It has some of this eraser on it. Damn it. you have like this thing. It's kind of like clay. Might have like at some point connected them. All right, I'll take care of that later. But yeah, you play around with it, and through that process, you're developing a better and better understanding of the face, of anatomy. You know, you're sculpting all this stuff, and you're starting to see like, oh, it has to be equal on both sides, and you start to understand why there's certain curves where they are. Like, for example, like at the top of the lip, you know, it's not just like a flat surface. It actually has curvature to it, and on top of that curvature you put the lips, and then when you put it at an angle, you start to understand, when you draw things at a 3/4 view, why it's shaped that way, because the rest of it is curving around and you can't really see it in this perspective. You know, it's hiding itself from the viewer's eye or from the camera or whatever. But yeah, in this process, you really do have, it's fun for one, you know, wrestling with it, trying to construct it properly, noticing little details here and there. And you could just do this by sitting on a couch. You don't have to have a desk or anything, right? You could just play around with it, and I think it has more room for forgiveness. You're not erasing anything. It's just having to like pick certain parts off and add clay, or then pinching it off if it's too much, or adding more to the other side, etc. But yeah, it's a cool process. You get some interesting results. And at the end of it, once you do finish it, you get a model that you can use for all sorts of things, like perspective. Like if you want to draw the head in this angle, you know, now you start to see the relationship between the eyes, for example, or the mouth and the nose. Like, where does that gap go, right, between the mouth and the nose? You can't see it, and it's kind of connecting the nostril and the mouth. I guess it depends on how you guys are seeing it. So yeah, like this angle, and you could see how the nose line is kind of not really there, you know. So it challenges you to also pay attention to all those details at the angle that you want, at the perspective that you want. And also light source, you know, you could change things around. You could move the light source around to study like what the face is going to look like if the light source is from the top right, top left, bottom, you know, all those kind of things. So all these benefits come from venturing into clay that also translate into your drawing. They all kind of go hand in hand. You know, if you guys have been present for the special stream, if you haven't checked it out, you could also check that out in the collections folder that I was talking about earlier by heading over to the video section and filtering based on collection. You'll see a highlight folder, and in that highlight folder you guys will find all the special streams that I've had so far for the Art Lounge Alley, and one of them is about Gil Elfgren, and he was this amazing, absolutely one of my favorite artists, painters. He was an amazing pinup artist, working in oil, and he used photography. It wasn't just from his imagination. It wasn't him just looking at the model and being able to nail down these like beautiful paintings. No, he used he used photography, and he was well known for that as well. He had a studio, and in that studio he had you know, lighting and a lot of stuff set up so that he was able to take the right photos that he needed and work off of them, create the paintings. Now, the creativity part of it all was that he didn't draw them exactly as the models were. In fact, if you were to look at, if you were to check out that stream, you would see that there are examples there showing what the models actually look like and what the painting ended up looking like. And you could see that a lot of his creativity came out of there, and like how he shaped the women, what kind of features he exaggerated, Even the faces were close, but at some point, sometimes depending on the model, he would change things around. So even the face wouldn't be exactly as the model is there. But yeah, what I'm getting at is that all these different mediums kind of lend themselves to each other. If you could take a photograph, doesn't mean you shouldn't draw anymore, because the entire point of you drawing is, first of all, you tap into imagination. You tap into being able to mold and shape things the way you want them to, bring out your own aesthetic, bring out your own likes and dislikes. So they're just mediums to help you with that. So if you liked photography, well, sure, why not? And do that. Sculpting, you don't have to be a sculptor if you're going to spend time understanding anatomy with it. It's just that it's the same kind of tool as a camera. It's just helping you to understand, because you enjoy the process of drawing. You like the medium, you like how it feels on paper. So you like the open opportunity for creativity, for you to be able to mold features of the face and create your own poses and create your own imaginative scenarios. Whatever it is, the opportunities are limitless when it comes to drawing. Just something that I absolutely love about it. So don't feel like it's a cop-out or something, or like, oh, you're using photographs, why not just... No, you're learning more and more to get better and rely less and less on references by using all these other mediums. So don't hesitate to do it. Go for it. So these lines that you see here, of course, they're not natural lines. You wouldn't really see this on a person, but they're just there to kind of also indicate planes, right? Like this area on the nose, that's a plane. This division right here, that's also to indicate that the face is folding over. It's not just going to continue on going straight. It's changing its plane to this side right here, more of another flat surface. So you can kind of see how the face has three planes, like in terms of big shapes. You got one plane here, another plane here, and then another plane here, which kind of makes sense to why people use boxes sometimes to draw the face, to make sure everything is in the right perspective. If you guys are hearing some background noise aside from the music, that is Dune Patrol. Yeah, I've been binge watching it, rewatching it, because I have been following up with all the episodes up until the most recent one, and they're gonna start a new one pretty soon, so I'm excited about it. I really like it. It's it's a fun show, and it is based on a comic book. It's actually kind of interesting to see how they've picked some of the characters, and how they cast them, basically. A lot of punk rock elements, which I really like. I love that Brandon Fraser is playing one of the characters there, the robot in the series, and he's constantly wearing like these really good t-shirts. Like I really like his attire there. But the show itself is great. What I really like about it is that it's not your average superheroes, right? It's not like this story about, and it's not to say that I don't like those stories. I still enjoy them. They might not be like my ultimate favorite, right? I wouldn't be like, oh, I can't wait until the next Avengers film. Like, to be honest, I really didn't care for them. I didn't enjoy them. But yeah, this one is pretty cool because I think it kind of brings things down to earth a bit. You know, these characters, they're not superheroes. They're going through some things that are relatable. You know, people can actually be like, you know, that is something that you can experience as a person. These troubles or issues that come up are realistic. They're not just, you know, superheroes having a bad time and getting their butt whooped or whatever. It's just concepts that still apply in a human way. And essentially, I think like all superhero movies are that, you know, they're just amplifying people's abilities or specialty and intellect or understanding or whatever it is. They're just like overemphasizing them or exaggerating them even more. So they're all kind of relatable, but I like that these are even more so. And it's pretty wacky. Like there's some weird scenes there. And I think that's what really captivates me, is that it's very creative. You know, certain scenarios are so bizarre and so ridiculous too at times. So it's like a good mixture of comedy, like it making fun of itself and making fun of like the whole like superhero aspect of it. But at the same time having really interesting like philosophical concepts as well, like things that really make you think about stuff, the possibilities of things, like talking about science and all. So it's just a mix of a bunch of different stuff. And as you go through each season and all the episodes, you discover more and more of those elements around. Like they're just kind of sprinkled through each episode. And because there are different characters, each one of them has their own story going on, and you kind of figure out like how do they end up being the way that they are. And yeah, I really enjoy it. And today, one of the ones that I actually like looked into to compare and see like what did the actual character in the comic book look like. It's this, I guess, superhero or mutant or whatever. I'm gonna say he's hired by some sort of like government agency or whatever because of his abilities. His name is the Beard Hunter, and it's really weird because he's able to consume or like eat somebody's hair or beard or whatever, and because of that they're able to access all different parts of the person's memory and their ability or whatever it is. So this is kind of really bizarre character, pretty gross, And in comparison to the comic book character, it's such a drastic difference. Like in the comic book character, it's this like really muscular looking guy with a weird beer belt. So he has like all these different beards, I guess, that he pulls on and like he eats to to have their abilities. So this is what I mean. It's such a bizarre concept. But they come up with all these really interesting characters. So if you guys haven't checked it out, check out Dune Patrol. It's a really fun show. And they do a great job, I think, having a mixture of like comedy and seriousness and bizarre elements. And it's kind of a roller coaster when you're watching it, because sometimes you hate each and every one of those characters at times, and other times you're just like, I get it. You know, I can understand how that could be a thing that creates problems or strife or whatever. So, like, it's just this roller coaster sort of that you go through with each character. And so far they've been doing a great job about it by like not overdoing it. You know, sometimes things become so melodramatic, you're just like, all right, you know, let's move on past that or something, or is kind of getting redundant. They've been pretty good about changing things up enough not to get to that point, not to get to that level. So I've just kind of been having that in the background and just tuning in from time to time while I'm working on all these other projects on the side. And I'm having a good time with it. I guess this guy kind of has like a Peter Griffin chin going on. Which reminds me, I remember there was a guy for some time actually, and this is probably at the peak of Family Guy, where this dude would dress up as Peter Griffin and go to Comic-Con. And he really, really did look very much like Peter Griffin. Like the shape of his face, the chin, all that was present. It was pretty uncanny. I think sometime he had some popularity. And people were constantly taking photos of him. And he may have been invited to like a talk show, but I don't remember. This is a while back. I'm not even sure. Is like Family Guy still going on? Is it still like generating new episodes? I'd imagine shows like Rick and Morty took over that popularity. Which, to be honest, I just can't get into it. I don't think I've given it enough chances, but I don't know. Or it could have been that social media just kind of killed it for me, or the fact that at the peak of its popularity, everybody was like quoting it and using their zingers, and I was just like, oh, dude, enough, please. So it might have just like overdone it for me. I was like, I don't want to watch it. But to be fair, I was kind of the same about Family Guy. When it first came out, I was just like constantly talking about it, or just being like, oh, there's this scene and there's this that happened. So I could understand how people could get so excited about it. But I also could understand saying it so much that people around just like roll their eyes and be like, oh god, another Family Guy quote, or another Family Guy reference. It does get pretty annoying at some point, I'm sure. I'm still in the stage of molding things. Like, as you could see, because I wasn't pressing hard on anything, it still gives me wiggle room to just slowly shift things up or down or to the side or whatever it is. Which is really, really useful. So similar to the examples that I was giving before about like shadows and how they're formed around the face depending on the light source and so on. As you could see, because he's smiling, right, he's pushing back all that skin and it's forming these shadows underneath, because of that light source, because there's a prominent point on the cheekbones and it really pops out, and because he's a little bit on the heavier side, there's even more skin there, so it's really pushing and creating like a crease. And because the cheekbone curves, it starts to form shadows, as you could see, like really depending on the light source. But even here you could see like slight shadows. So because he has even more skin here, the shadows are even darker. You know, there's less light able to penetrate that area. So just on that topic of like what happens to other features of the face when you add a smile. And usually the eyes become more narrow in that scenario because, again, you're pushing up all that skin, you're pushing up the cheekbones, and the cheekbones are pushing up the eyelids, and, you know, the bottom eyelids, they're pushing up those eyelids. And usually, you know, there isn't that much work when it comes to the eyebrows. You know, if you add element of surprise, let's say somebody's laughing because they're surprised, that's like a different example, right? It's like a different expression, and in that case then the eyes would, from the top, really, like the bottom eyelids would be pushed up because of the cheekbones, closing them a bit halfway, but then because of the surprised element, because the eyes are kind of widened, then the top lids kind of compensate for the bottom ones closing, and they would widen up, or they would go further up. And then, the eyebrows would go up as well to indicate that. But generally, for just like a regular smile, the cheekbones would be pushing that up, and the eyes would narrow because of that. You know, they're slowly closing. And ladies and gents, with that said, I believe I'm going to have to end the stream for drawing basics for the week. It's crazy how quick time flies. It feels like it was Monday yesterday, and I just started out these lessons. But today's Friday. Hope you guys have a good weekend. But fret not, for those of you who are going to stick around, there's going to be the project stream that's coming up next. And I'm going to be showing you guys work that I'm doing on something from my imagination. Some character development there. I'm going to continue coloring it, adding certain elements, playing around with certain things here and there as I work through the image. And yeah, that's coming up next. And if you guys do enjoy this content, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both help the stream, and of course, they're greatly appreciated by yours truly. With that said, y'all, I will see you in 5. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. I am your host, and I'm going to continue on with my project, which is what you're looking at right now. I'm getting closer to pretty much having everything in solid color. Can't say that I'm completely done with line work. I might change some things around the more color I'm going to start adding. But the most important thing for me at the moment is just getting solid colors out. Once the solid colors are there, I could start playing around with things and playing around with the colors that I actually want. But so far, to be honest, it's very close. Like, I might want to change some building colors in the background here and there, but for the most part, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Make sure that I'm on the right layer. I got a layer that's labeled buildings, and that's pretty accurate. Sort of want to have like a unifying element, like there's this blue building that you see in the background. I kind of wanted to make the roof over here on the top left to have it, just to kind of, to unify all the colors, not to have something extremely stark in a way. And also by having all these other blue color variations. Whoops. I kind of wonder, actually. Yeah, it works. That's good. I colored it white, and it's really white. It seems unrealistic to even for it to be that white, considering what a dirty area I'm trying to portray here. Just doesn't seem like a place like that would actually hold white buildings. But I might just add dirt. You know, like there's certain dirt marks that you guys see, little grime marks around, so I might just color those in to give it that grit. And I did forget actually to do some font over here. I'm gonna do the font in like a red. I didn't want to keep it in actual text form because I think it's too perfect and just doesn't look right. So I'm going to try to color it in, and then play around with it. The plan is to make them neon, like a neon sign. So I'm gonna have to play around with like the interior of it. I mean, I guess it doesn't make too much of a difference. I could just play around with the font for it. And to do so, I am gonna change. Well, that's interesting. Why doesn't it wanna? Maybe I have to rasterize it. Yeah, see, it's doing what I was talking about before yesterday. Like when you're selecting it, it doesn't select everything. It still leaves like these border edges around. I mean, less so because of the lasso tool and me playing around with the lasso tool. But let's find out. Let's see what happens when I actually change the colors. Gonna hide that selection border. Give me a better understanding of what's going on over here. And then rasterize it. Actually, because it's on a different layer than everything else, I might not even need a selection. I could just change things around. So let me undo that selection. And I'm going to clean things up. Just make sure it's not there anymore. And now I'm going to saturate it. And see what is best here. I was originally thinking of like color some like that. And I was thinking about doing like some sort of animation. It would be cool to have like the lights flickering or something, but it wouldn't make sense to animate that and not animate them walking, you know? So like, as much as I would like to do that, then I would have to animate everything. I would have to animate the people. I would have to animate the cars moving around. And him playing actual, like, flicking his fingers or something. So that might be that might be something I'm gonna shelve for now. As cool as that sounds. Ooh, what about like, that's kind of what I was looking for. Boost your experience. And I still have to play around with the screen itself. So that's the font, but the screen has a different color. Come on. Click out of that. I'm gonna fill it with a really bright color. And then maybe that's gonna help me pick a better color for the font. Now that doesn't look good. I was thinking white, but there's a lot going on here with colors. Still pretty hesitant. And the only one that's kind of sitting with me somewhat well is this like pinkish color. I don't know. Maybe playing around with the background color. That's also not bad. I'm kind of digging that, like that yellowish background. And I think it's probably going to look better once I start coloring in the main character. But I do want to just settle in on something. Like, it's not too bad. Like this in between right there. I'm going to keep it here. And I might play around with this a little bit more because I feel like I could make it lighter to give it like a glow, because if it's like that's all right. Let me see. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm gonna go with that for now. Always a bit nerve-wracking. Well, it's not nerve-wracking, but I guess kind of exciting to take it to the next stage, which is going to be coloring the characters. It kind of, I think, the feeling that I get with it when it comes to this is kind of like reading a really good book and realizing there's only a couple of more chapters to go. And you're just like, I don't want this to end. I don't want this chapter, or I don't want this book to end. You know, I really got into the characters. I really got into the scene. And then it's just acknowledging that you're soon going to have to move on. So I think that's kind of what I'm experiencing. And at the same time, I think, well, I've pretty much had this kind of reaction to a lot of the work that I've done, which I don't think is great, because I do want to produce more work and get faster and faster at that process. So I think I just have to become... Ooh, I see what's going on here. So I'm gonna have to... What I'm gonna have to do is just color this and then change the opacity on it. And see how that works. Yeah. So that's kind of a way around it. I had to I had to do a layer over the pencil work, because if I was to do it under, then the shadows of the building would block any of the smoke from actually appearing. So I had to do a layer on top of the pencil work and then just reduce the opacity on it so that you could still see the line work of everything underneath it. It's a little workaround there. Ooh, I see something that I want to define more, which is the pole that she's resting on. So I'm going to head over to the store layer and start working on this. And now I can kind of play around with it. I thought maybe the cap would be different. Or maybe I'm just gonna make it darker. Nah, that's a little too dark. Getting better. I'm also excited for tonight. I'm gonna be watching. It's like movie night. I'm gonna be watching this old school film. I think it was like 1994 called Brain Scan. Now, I can't guarantee if you guys are gonna like check it out yourselves. I can't guarantee it's gonna be a great movie because I don't know what to expect. But I do know that the actor from Terminator 2, the one who plays the kid, John, I think that was his name, he's in that movie, and it's this like futuristic but like 90s futuristic, you know. So it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be a nostalgic kind of film because it's going to remind me of the 90s. It's not going to be like this really modernized CGI. It's going to be kind of crappy, but at the same time good. I don't know how to explain it. Like there's some fun element to it, you know, that it does sell itself to be futuristic. I think The Matrix really set the bar high. After that, like all movies were trying to outdo it or be equal to it or outdo it, whereas prior to it, you know, the CGI and the graphics were kind of comical, I want to say, but it really depends on the audience because at the time probably kids were watching it and they were like blown away by it. And maybe during that time, because we didn't really have that high level of CGI, it looked great, you know. So it's kind of interesting to think about like what's gonna happen 10 years from now? You know, what's going to be the next level of graphics? Because every time there comes a peak, you think like, what else can they do? Like, what else is there left, right? But I think that's the beauty of art and creativity, is that people always try to like come up with new elements, new things that would really, I guess, excite the population, and they'll be like, oh my god, that's amazing. And I'm kind of curious to see what that is. But I think what really made The Matrix so amazing, it's kind of similar to, I mean, it is based on a comic book, but I'm gonna say it's kind of similar to that. Is that the story was so great. It wasn't just the graphics, because there were a bunch of films that came out after, and maybe it was also just bias of knowing like, oh, they're just trying to outdo The Matrix, but the stories were just not great. You know, they weren't captivating. So I think if there's something new to come, it should also have like a really good story to follow. I'm expecting the graphics for this movie, for Brain Scan, to be similar to what was it? Johnny. What was the name of it? Johnny Mnemonics? I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Pneumatic. Johnny Pneumatic, was that it? Mnemonic. There you go, Johnny Mnemonic. And it was like a cyberpunk film with Keanu Reeves on there. And I think it was pretty, like when I was watching it, I was like, this is very much like The Matrix. Like, this is very similar. The idea is very similar to it. But it was created a year after Brain Scan, because Brain Scan is 94. Yeah, it was 94. And it just seems like one of those like underrated films, like films that didn't really get as much attention. I think similar to Minority Report. Like Minority Report didn't get much attention. I remember it came out during the time that I was going to like movies a lot. And I don't remember seeing, like, I was so shocked when I did find out about it that I was like, wait, this is the time where I did go to movies. Why didn't I see it? Like, I didn't see any trailers for it or anything like that. So I want to say that Brain Scan is kind of like that. It's an in-betweener. Okay. I'm going to get into coloring. Coloring the characters now. So I'm going to create a new layer, name it People. And just start giving it solid colors. I wanted to give her white hair. Just that silver look. Maybe it's because I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones. But really, I always kind of thought it was cool. Like, even in the Matrix, too, like when those two ghosts appear, I think it was like Matrix 3, those twin brother ghosts. I thought it looked pretty cool. In other news, I voted early. I think it's important that you guys do as well. Something that I was talking about in other streams. I think that this election is a lot more important, or just as important, to be honest, as presidential elections, because like I mentioned before, presidential election is one thing, but if nothing is pushed through in Congress, like if, let's say, the House of Representatives push a bill, gets to the Senate, and then the Senate rejects it, it doesn't get pushed to the president. It's not going to be into law. So when we want certain change, for example, one of the most important ones that I'm still outraged and disgusted by how it was handled during the pandemic is increasing the minimum wage. The fact that people were going in, risking their lives, catching this virus, and this is before there was some sort of treatment for it, or if there was some way to prevent it. This is when people were dropping like flies, and nobody knew what was going on and why this was happening. They had these obnoxious, disgusting companies telling people they have to go into the office regardless. And it was like, oh, what a repulsive system. The fact that they even allowed such a thing, that people weren't revolting and being like, hey, what? Are you kidding me right now? Like, you want us to go in and catch this virus and spread it around to our family and, possibly kill off old elderly people, kids, so that you could profit from that? You can make billions off of that? That's disgusting. That is absolutely something that, like, some sort of Nazi party or fascist party would do. Like, they're just like, well, we don't care. You don't matter. So if we don't matter, then you don't need us to work in the company. And it just, from there, just spiraled out. It just turned into this crazy behavior coming from all these companies. But yeah, despite the fact that people were going in still, which I was totally outraged by, I was like, how can you even support such a thing and enable that? And that's exactly why, if you look up, if you do a little bit of research, a lot of these corporations, they had record-breaking profits during that period, because first of all, people were spending all this money that they were getting from the stimulus. Thankfully, eventually they came to some sense, or not really came to sense, but got scared that people were going to revolt and really shut down the economy. They started to do that and people were spending money like crazy. So all these companies were racking in record-breaking profits. So they were, of course, banking off of that like crazy and expected even more. I mean, that's the sickness when it comes to greed. It's like gambling. You just want more. You want to keep doing it and want to see how much more you could acquire, how much more you could win, or whatever else. It's a very similar concept to it. Yeah, during that time, people were demanding better pay. And of course, that wasn't going to get passed by. And all the people in the House of Representatives, since Congress is two, it's House of Representatives and the Senate. So two-step process. So first it has to go to the House of Representatives, and then they have to debate, and that's a lot of people there. They all have to sign on it. And once, let's say the Democrats agree, and the number of Democrats outweighs the number of Republicans, then it gets passed over to the Senate. And the same thing applies in the Senate. If there's way more Democrats who are going to sign off on it, then it's going to be passed to the president, and the president can say, okay, it's law now. So things like minimum wage, increase everybody's minimum wage. It hasn't been increased since 2009. Can you believe that? 2009. So it's been about 12 years. 12 years that nothing has changed. Meanwhile, they've just been racking in all these profits from all people just getting exploited nonstop for that long. And even then, at that time, 12 years ago, it was a ridiculous wage to begin with, considering what the economy was like. So again, it was the same scenario, different year. But yeah, so this election is going to be that. It's going to determine if Democrats are going to be the majority when it comes to both of these sectors, both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And if that's the case, then things like increasing the minimum wage, things like healthcare for everybody, things like, what people should be pushing is affordable education to everybody, student loan forgiveness, like all those things can be passed because most Democrats agree to it. And that's what they've been promising, basically, or talking about. Like, hey, can you believe it? If we were to control both chambers, we would pass this immediately. So now we're going to have to hold them accountable for that. If they don't, then that's going to be another huge problem that they're going to have to deal with. But it's a very, very important point. I think a lot of people got used to the idea of like, just focusing on presidential elections. Like, yeah, I'm going to go out and vote. It's presidential. And just kind of ending it there. But this is very, very important. So make sure you guys go out there and vote. Vote blue. Don't vote against your interest. Don't vote against making your future better. And stay up to date on what's going on with that stuff. It is important to be part of that process. It's the civilized way to go about creating change despite having people with different points of views. And I want to say in some cases, like, different point of views is healthy, but when it comes down to just supporting fascism, supporting like white supremacy, sexism, racism, it's not a point of view. You're just crazy and stupid. Like, that's basically where I stand on it. I think people who support that are brainwashed. Either they're brainwashed or they have some sort of mental problems if they think that that's appropriate. It's the way to go about the future, which isn't the future. It's just going back in time. yeah, I'm totally outraged by it. I never expected it, to be honest, and that's probably because I guess I wasn't as involved politically as before, because I didn't think that things would turn to fascism, or that American people, or some American people would, not American because there's a bunch, but there would be a majority party that supports Nazis, because they fought against that. You know, their grandparents fought against that, going into World War II, you know, having to fight against basically an entire party that was against diversity, that hated anybody that didn't look like them. They had this like insane superiority complex. They abused and used everybody and like murdered a bunch of people. And it amazes me, actually, like recently there's this outcry about some pop star talking anti-Semitic stuff, and there are people that are like, oh, I can't believe it. But you can believe that there's an entire party that supports white supremacy? Like, it doesn't make any sense. How can you be outraged by one thing but not by another thing that's completely related? Like, they're the same exact problems. You know, it's somebody who is incredibly ignorant, who generalizes people based on skin color, generalizes people in like, that's ridiculous. It's really stupid. It's still not understanding the concept of diversity and how important that is, and how that's not going to go away. Anyway, that's my rant for it, but do remember to go out there and vote. It's very, very crucial. And you could hear a lot of people who've been talking sense, like Bernie Sanders, Robert Reich, you know, those guys are on the same page. They understand all these things. They understand how catastrophic it is. Obama, you know, the Obama family, they talk about that very frequently. Very well-rounded, kind and devoted people. Like, you could see that despite them not even being in the White House anymore, they didn't just sign off and say, okay, peace, I'm out. You know, they still continue to influence people. They still try to bring people up instead of exploiting them, instead of promising them all this stuff and not delivering. Like, they created the Obama Foundation, schools, and they're helping kids gain more confidence in themselves and giving them better understanding and education and care, you know, to say that, hey, despite us being like trillionaires or whatever, like, we still want you to be great. So they're wonderful people. I'm really glad that they're still around and that they're continuing to do great, you know, to balance things out against all these crazy capitalist fascists. I'm so pissed about all that, to be honest. You know, the American values that I grew up with and I believed in were just thrown out the window during the pandemic, and I was like, no way. This can't be it. And shame on all those who threw it out for the sake of celebrity nonsense. But each generation has these kind of problems, because there are some movies, not that makes it okay, you know, I'm not saying, it's point out that that's not new. You know, these problems have actually been going on for a while. Like, there's movies that I've watched that were from the 70s. This is something that I bring up what was that movie called? Was it Money Troubles or something? No, it was something else. It wasn't Money for Nothing, but that is a good one with John Cusack. It's called Money for Nothing. It's about him finding a bag of money from a heist or from like a bank robbery. They were being chased. The bank robbers were being chased, and they just threw out the money to like take the heat off. They threw it out the window, and John Cusack was riding around with his friends, and they just saw it there, and he picked it up, and he didn't report it. So it's like this whole movie about it, and it's great. I'm a big John Cusack fan. I like a lot of the films that he was in. Couldn't help myself there with this character. I kind of wanted to save him like for the last, just work my way in the same fashion of like going from background characters to foreground. But I'm just kind of curious to see what he's gonna look like, and I think he's gonna look great. I really like how he turned out. I'm gonna say I based him slightly on. I'm gonna say it's like a mix, because I don't know. I think I was just working on his face, and certain features just looked appealing. But I'm gonna say he is slightly based on the Chats. It's this Australian punk rock band that recently came out. They released a new album, and they're a lot of fun. I really like them, actually. They're one of my favorite bands, I'm gonna say, for now. Recent ones, because I have a lot of bands that I really like, but new bands that recently came out, I'm gonna say they're like the top 5 for me. But yeah, check them out. They're called the Chats. And I'm gonna say it's similar to the lead singer. Uh-oh. I knew it. I got so excited. I didn't pay attention. Which layer this is on. But no worries. I could just transfer it. Merge with the layer below, and that should do it. Yep, there you go. Just gonna go with it for now. Filling it in with solids. No biggie. And something that I mentioned before when it comes to drawing, I always talk about how when I first start out a drawing, right, it's like, oh, the most nerve-wracking point is like having to figure things out and shape them out and not knowing if it's gonna turn out to be how you want it to be. You know, that not knowing part, it could be pretty intimidating. But after everything is layered, and this happens to me like almost every single time whenever I start doing or working on some project or something, once I get everything down and it's in this stage, right, in this like final stage, I start to miss the first process. You know, I'm like, oh, that was such a fun, like looking back at it, it was such a fun stage, and it was cool having to like come up with all of them, and like the process itself of like shaping everything around and developing and seeing it come to life little by little. So you just kind of miss all of that. And then the inking process as well, it comes in full circle. It's like, oh, first it was frustrating, and I was like, oh, I hope it turns out really well towards the end. And then at the end, it's like, oh, I hope I could, well, I kind of want to go back to the beginning. Still not sure what to do with this guy. He's a bit of an odd character. I don't know what color I should make him. Like, part of me wants to make him really pale. Then he's not much different from like the guy in the foreground. If I just make his face white, it's kind of creepy. Kind of creepy, but it works. I don't know. There's something about it, and then I have to like figure out the coat and what color that's gonna be. Can't be like, I was thinking red-ish. Like a dark red of some sort. I'm gonna say that's my color choice right now, for now. But unfortunately, everybody, as much fun as I'm having with all this, I do have to call it a night. This is gonna be the last stream for the week. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. And of course, remember, I will be back next week on Monday. Same time and place. Right here at the Art Lounge Alley. If you guys enjoy this content, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both will do fantastical things. They will make me as the streamer happy, and reach to a wider audience, and help grow the stream, and hopefully help out other people who are interested in everything the Art Lounge Alley has to offer. I did take a break from talking about my Patreon because I do want to upload more material. Just wanted to introduce you guys to it more. You guys can feel free to check that out. That's in the About section of the Twitch channel. You could head over there and you'll see it on the right hand side, along with other links. And over there you guys can find different tiers, not necessarily ones having to do with my work, but opportunities for you guys to get involved with the Art Lounge Alley, for you guys to be able to submit work to be critiqued live on stream, where I can give you guys demonstrations right here using Clip Studio Paint, and help you guys improve on whatever it is that you're doing. If you guys want to promote your work, if you are intermediate or advanced artist and you want to like get more viewership, or you want to be part of an artistic community, there is also that tier available. Those of you who don't want to be public but would like to have some private lessons where I give you guys step-by-step instructions based on what you submit. You know, you do have to submit something. It's not based on any skill level. You could be a total beginner. And I would give you guys like advice on what you could do. I would show you and send you videos every week showing you what you could do to improve on your work, giving you like live demonstration in Clip Studio Paint, etc. And you guys can check all that out. That's all those tiers, along with other opportunities, are at the Patreon page, on the Patreon page, that is. So check that out, y'all, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.